Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video. And also, if you're interested in a personal consultation, I do consultations on a wide variety of topics. Please check out the video description. I will leave my contact information there. And also, if you are interested in seeing some of my tarot readings, I'm also going to link the link to my newly created tarot channel also in the video description. You can check the video description for that. And also, unrelated to the channel, if you are interested in finding out more about how to get a tarot reading from me, I can send you reviews and samples of personal consultations that I have done anonymously. Of course, they will be anonymous. I can send you samples and reviews and feedbacks that I have gotten, as well as the pricing list. So if you are interested in finding out more about my tarot readings, please also email me at the email in the video description. Okay, thank you. So today's video is going to be basically just a short video on something that I think needs to be said. It's kind of like a heads up, I guess. How should I call it? A warning. I don't like the word warning because it's a little bit too intense. But it is about Rahu entering the Aries side of Krittika. Which, you probably already know actually in where I am right now. It hasn't entered Krittika. It hasn't entered Aries yet. I think tomorrow, or I don't know, at some point in these days, it's going to enter Aries. Right now, it's still in Taurus. But it has been in Krittika. As you know, Rahu has been in the Krittika Nakshatra since last year in the late of September, roughly. Of course, again, it depends on your exact geographical location. And now it's entering the side of Aries. I also kind of briefly touched upon this in the video that I made basically on the war in Ukraine. I made that video, I think, 1 or 2 days after it started. I touched upon the transits a little bit there, indirectly mentioning Rahu and Rahu's transits through the Taurus side of Krittika versus how they're going to differ from the Aries side of Krittika. As you know, Krittika spans one padha in the last degrees of Aries, and the other 3 padhas are in the first degrees of Taurus, up to 10 degrees Taurus. Okay, so this is going to be the roughest side of Rahu's transit through Krittika, basically. That's why I'm not feeling so great about this. It's probably going to last approximately until mid-July 2022, and I think it's important to understand the potential expressions of this transit. First, I want to start by saying that I don't know if you've noticed, to be fair, I haven't really paid that much attention to Rahu's transits in the past, really. Transits, to be honest, were not my forte for most of my interest in astrology, because I started out in astrology studying, the psychological aspects of astrology, the psychological applications, let's say, of astrology with archetypes and how people relate to one another and all that stuff. So I initially didn't pay that much attention to transits, but once I did start paying more attention to transits, I'm like, holy moly. It's amazing how much transits can influence life on Earth, which makes perfect sense because all of us were born during certain placements, and that is why we behave. That is why, we are such good reflections of our horoscopes. That's what transits are, the influences of certain cycles of time. And when Rahu is going, now Rahu, first of all, let me start with this, is about sudden activities. It's all about jolts. This is why Rahu, among other planets, is connected to, among all the other planets or points, is connected to electricity, storms, electrical discharges. It's basically sudden, sudden activities, sudden stuff. That's why Rahu is connected to fast movements, quick lightning movements, lightning changes. It's also why the only sign that is co-ruled by Rahu is Aquarius, the sign that is most connected to everything progressive, avant-garde. We are said to be in the age of Aquarius, and we definitely are, because look at the fast-paced life that most people lead today and have been leading for the past few decades or so, especially when compared to the slow pace that has dominated humanity's progress for, I don't know, thousands of years previous. And in the past 100 years, the population of the world has gone from 1 billion to 8 billion, etc., etc., all kinds of changes. I'm not going to get into that. But basically, yes, Rahu is about speed. It's about progress. It's about, ready or not, here I come. That kind of an energy. Now, Krittika as a nakshatra, and I have talked about Krittika a little bit more in depth in the video that I did on the sun-ruled, the partner dispositor in the sun-ruled nakshatra, so you might want to also check that out. I think it's in my relationship astrology or the partner archetype in the natal chart playlist. So I talk a little bit more in depth about Krittika, but just very briefly, it's a very war-like nakshatra. It's a very war-dominated nakshatra. It's connected to, among the 27 nakshatras, Krittika, and I would say to a lesser extent, there are a bunch of others, to a lesser extent, maybe 2 or 3 of others, like Dhanishta, maybe Purvashadha, that are connected to warfare. But I would say Krittika by far is the one that is most connected to warfare. I also talked about this in the video that I made about the war in Ukraine, that basically when Rahu was going through, and in some places is still going through, the Taurus side of Krittika, it's conjunct the president of Russia's moon, which makes him even more power hungry than usual. And also the fact that he has some placements in Krittika in his horoscope as well. But I digress. So Krittika is, on the one hand, yes, it's also being ruled by the sun. It's a fierce nakshatra. It's actually a semi-fierce nakshatra, which, again, I'm not going to get too much in depth because it's complicated. But it's let me put it like that. It is a nakshatra that definitely has the capacity to be very destructive, very fierce. It's connected to fire, anything that produces heat, firearms, fire as an element. Let me put it, purification, fire as a purifying force, as also as a destructive force. It's also called the birthplace of power. I don't like to say it, especially when I think about Ukraine. But it is called the birthplace of power. So it's like, despite the fact that Krittika is actually a female and passive nakshatra, when it is triggered, so to speak, think about a Krittika like a sleeping volcano. That's pretty much the energy. It's like massive potential that once it is unleashed is unstoppable, something like that. Unstoppable or extremely destructive, takes a long time to cool off. Basically think of that kind of an energy, especially when it is in Taurus, because Taurus is an earth sign. There's a great deal of inertia there. I always thought of Taurus, and Taurus quite rightfully so. It's not coincidental that Krittika, the birth star of power, falls in Taurus to a large extent, because Taurus, being one of the 4 fixed signs, is one of the, quote, power signs. So these are signs that will win by sheer staying power. Like, especially Taurus is seen as the most benign and simple of the signs, because, like Ferdinand the Bull. But think about the raging bull. Think about cows in general. Like, cows are just sitting there happily grazing, but if you try to mess with them, they will run you over and turn you one with the ground. And pretty much this is the energy connected to especially Krittika, especially Taurus, and especially Taurus in Krittika. Let me put it like that. And basically, there's this, or the snowball effect, that falls down the mountain, and the more it falls, the bigger it gets, and the more difficult it is to stop. And what I have seen in the past, I don't know, few months, when Rahu was in Krittika, in the Taurus side of Krittika, first of all, there was that volcano erupting in Spain. I think that was last November in the Canaries. A few months ago, or was it like a month ago, 2 months ago, maybe even less than a month, I'm not sure exactly, there was this big earthquake in Japan that left millions in a blackout, in a power blackout. There was a bunch of stuff. I don't remember everything, but I remember just listening to the news, and there was like all this stuff, like, because, and this makes sense. And again, I will be honest, I haven't paid that much attention in the past years, because I mean, I definitely have heard earthquakes and stuff happening, but like in the past months, I would say since Rahu entered Krittika in Taurus last year, roughly at the end of September, it seems like there was a lot of these incidents, one after another almost. Also, earthquakes, I think, happen in multiple places. There was a tsunami alert in some places. All kinds of stuff, okay? And this is typical for the Taurus side of Krittika. Krittika, to me, is connected to nature, but it's especially the earth side of nature. So, like, versus, let's say, Ardra, which would be more connected to the weather phenomena, like thunderstorms and stuff. Krittika is more about the earth, especially in Taurus, because in Taurus, it's an earth sign. So what do you see? You see stuff like earthquakes, you see stuff like volcanoes erupting. Typical, by the way. A volcano is the perfect expression of the Krittika energy, which is fire and earth. And something that basically lies dormant for long periods of time and then explodes when people are on vacation. Basically, that's the kind of energy. And now what I've seen that Rahu is moving into Aries, and what I think we will see more of, I won't even get into the war side because I think it's sadly predictable. I think it's going to get worse to some extent. I also mentioned this in the video because, I mean, let me put it like this. The Taurus side, at least, the Taurus side of Krittika, at least, is run by Venus. There's a little bit of a chance of diplomacy there. But once it reaches Aries, it's going to be gloves are off. Like, Aries is basically it's ruled by Mars, which is the god of war. So you're going to see a lot of aggressiveness, a lot of competition, intensification of competition and aggressiveness and fighting. And also what you need to watch out for, this is what I wanted to get personally in an everyday life basis, accidents. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw, actually just a few days ago, there was this incident, I think in the Czech Republic or somewhere, where, was it the Czech Republic? I don't remember. Somewhere in Europe, in any case, where these two men were killed because some undetonated bomb from World War II went off unexpectedly, something like that. Typical. This is the kind of stuff that you can see. Why do you think you're going to see this stuff? Because again, Rahu is sudden events. Rahu, by the way, also rules sudden death. But of course, I don't want to talk about it because a bunch of you have commented, stop being so morbid. But if you're interested in that, I have actually done a video where I talk about death and Aruda Lagna and stuff, but I'm gonna just leave this here, that if you have Rahu in the third from the Aruda Lagna, or if Rahu is connected to the Aruda Lagna, most likely it will show a sudden death, for instance. Of course, it doesn't mean that now that Rahu is in, because obviously Rahu is always going through a certain sign. But what I'm trying to say is that Rahu deals with sudden things, sudden events, and especially in a malefic nakshatra, in a fierce nakshatra, savage nakshatra, a rakshasa, or a demon nakshatra, which is definitely not going to play nice like Krittika. And here's another thing. The reason why it's not going to play nice is because Rahu and the sun are not friends. If you go back to the legend of Rahu, the sun and the moon basically ratted out on Rahu. I don't remember what his name was, but it was that demon. I talked about the legend in one of the videos. Rahu was trying to trick the gods by eating ambrosia or something, the food of the gods that would make it immortal. And the sun and the moon were next to him and basically called him out on his BS. And that's what caused him to be decapitated by a god. The god, I think. And yeah, basically Rahu and the sun, Rahu and the moon, they don't play nice together. That's the theory. And Krittika is ruled by the sun. Rahu is not happy in this environment. So it's going to be acting out. Basically, yes, especially if you are a person, especially if you work in a line of work where maybe you have to deal with a lot of machinery, maybe you even work in defense, or you know people who work in defense with weapons and stuff like that, you need to watch out be extra careful. I would say that. Don't leave anything to chance. Be very careful. I have myself had a couple of domestic accidents, which I know sounds really pathetic, but I have a bunch of like really nasty bruises on my arms and legs right now because and I normally don't get these kinds of things. I'm not particularly accident prone, but now that Rahu's going through Krittika and aspecting certain part, it's aspecting my Mars actually, now that I was thinking about it. I'm gonna get more accidents than usual. And definitely watch out for driving cars, watch out for traffic, especially on the road. I wouldn't necessarily say air traffic, but definitely watch out for traffic, watch out for accidents. Like once it hits Aries, it's gonna see, I wouldn't be surprised if you would see more incidents of mechanical accidents, like cars, things where an object pierces the body. I'm not going to get into gruesome details, but stuff that I would see connected to Mars, for instance, in the Aruda Lagna, connected to circumstances of death. I wouldn't be surprised if more of those incidents start when Rahu hits the Aries side of Krittika. And of course, when it comes to conflict, I don't know. It's just, the interpretation that I would give is that it's going to intensify conflict, but of course it depends on what else is happening with the rest of the planets, and of course in the charts of the people and the nations involved in the conflict. So I'm not going to give any predictions on that. What is really curious is what's going to happen when Rahu hits Bharani Nakshatra, because Bharani is ruled by the god of death. So I'm going to try to be optimistic about it. At the very least, Bharani is ruled by Venus, and Venus is a friend of Rahu, so I'm going to try to, it's like they say, what was that saying? Hope for the best, expect the worst, that kind of thing. But the reason I wanted to make this video mainly is to just give this warning about being extra careful, because I've already seen evidence of it happening. Aside from what is happening on a larger scale, like volcanoes and stuff and accidents, I've seen it happening like on a smaller scale, where people are more accident prone, there are more accidents. So yeah, I just wanted to give this as a kind of a heads up. Okay, so that has been it, and if you have enjoyed it, sorry for the potentially negative tone of the video, but if you have enjoyed it and you have found this information useful, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video. And also, if you're interested in a personal consultation, astrology or tarot, please email me at the email in the video description. Thank you.